Chapter 1. His name is Eli, and he has been my bodyguard for 3 years, and in that time I have learned everything about him that a person can learn about someone who is always there. I know that he takes his coffee without anything in it, and drinks it standing up at the kitchen counter rather than sitting down, not because he is in a hurry, but because he says sitting down to drink coffee commits you to a pace for the morning, and he prefers to decide what pace the morning needs once he has seen what the morning is. I know that he reads at night always, and that the book changes but the habit does not. I know that he has a scar on his left hand from something that happened before he worked for me, and that he has never explained, and that I have never asked about because some things are a person's own. I know that he is the most quietly observant person I have ever been around, always aware of where every person in a room is, and what they are doing and what the exits are, and what would happen if something went wrong, and that this awareness is so ingrained that he does it without appearing to do it. I know that when he laughs it is rare and genuine, and always at something he did not expect to find funny. I know that he is better at being still than anyone I have ever known. I know that he takes his work seriously in a way that is different from obligation. It is the seriousness of someone who has decided that this specific thing is worth doing properly. I know all of these things because you cannot be with someone every day for 3 years without knowing them, even if the relationship has a professional structure, even if there are lines that neither of you crosses. You know each other, you cannot help it. What I have never said out loud, not once in 3 years, is what I know about the way he looks at me when he thinks I am not looking. I have not said it because saying it would change things and the things between us work, and I have not wanted to risk the working of them for something I am not sure about. I am sure about it, that is the other thing I have not said. I have been sure about it for approximately a year and a half, and I have been managing it with the specific discipline of someone who understands that some things are not appropriate to act on. And then on a Tuesday evening in November, someone shot at me, and he stepped in front of it, and everything changed. I will not describe what came after in detail, because I have spent the months since trying to make certain parts of it smaller, and describing them in detail would make them larger again. I will say that there was a great deal of blood, and that it was his, and that the 40 minutes between the shot and the hospital were the longest 40 minutes of my life, and that I held his hand the entire way, and told him things I had been not saying for a year and a half, and I do not know if he heard any of them. He survived. That is the most important thing. He survived. He woke up 4 days later and looked at me with those amber eyes and said my name as a question. Not the way you say a name to greet someone, the way you say a word when you are trying to work out what it means, like he had found the word somewhere in himself and was checking whether it was right. The doctors explained it to me carefully, the injury, the specific location of it and what it had affected, retrograde amnesia, not everything, not even most things, but a specific period, the last 3 years. The last 3 years of his life, which are the 3 years he spent with me, which means he woke up in a hospital bed and did not know who I was. He knows his name. He knows his life before he came to work for me. He knows his training and his skills and the people he knew before. He does not know me. He does not know 3 years of mornings and coffee without anything in it, and late nights, and every conversation and everything we have built in the space of being together every day. He does not know that I love him. He does not know that I told him so in the back of an ambulance while he was bleeding. I sit in the chair beside his hospital bed, and I look at him, and I understand that I am going to have to figure out what to do with all of this. Chapter 2. I visit every day. This requires a certain amount of management because there are people around me who do not know about the year and a half of not saying things, and who think of Eli as my bodyguard in the professional sense, and who find it slightly excessive that I am at the hospital every morning before it opens, and every evening until the nurses ask me to go. I manage their confusion by not explaining it, and by being very clear that I am not open to discussion on the subject. He is confused by my presence too, not in the way that someone is confused by a stranger. He knows who I am in the factual sense. He has been told. The security company gave him a briefing when he was well enough to sit up and process information. He knows my name and my position, and that he has been my bodyguard for 3 years, and that he was shot protecting me. He knows these facts. He does not know me. The difference between those two things is enormous, and I feel it every time I walk into the room. He is polite to me. This is the hardest part. He is genuinely polite, the way you are with someone you have been told you should be kind to, and every time he is polite in that way, I feel the distance of it in my chest like something pressing. He asks me questions, not many at first, but more as the days pass and he becomes more himself physically. He asks about the work and what his role was and what the daily structure looked like. He asks these questions carefully, the way someone asks when they are trying to rebuild a picture of something they have lost, and I answer them carefully too, giving him the factual version of 3 years because the factual version is what he is asking for, and the other version is mine to carry for now. What I notice watching him from the chair beside his bed is that the things that are most him are still there. The stillness, the quality of his attention, the way he listens when someone speaks, actually listening rather than waiting, the dry, quiet thing he does occasionally that is almost a sense of humor and occasionally becomes one. All of these things are there. They are just pointed at a stranger. Because to him, that is what I am. I sit beside his bed on the fourth day of being awake, and he is looking at the window, and there is afternoon light coming through it, and I find myself doing what I used to do when he did not know I was watching. Looking at his face and thinking about all the things I know about him that he does not know I know, and the specific grief of that. He turns and catches me looking. In the old version of us, this happened occasionally and always with a quality of shared awareness, both of us knowing that something had been seen, but neither of us naming it. In this version, he just looks back at me with his amber eyes and a polite expression and asks if I need anything. I tell him no, I thank him. I look at the window instead. I stay until the nurses ask me to go. I come back the next morning. This is what I can do right now. Be here, that is all. I cannot give him back the 3 years. I cannot make him remember. I can only be here and be patient and hope that the person I know is still in there somewhere underneath the gap. I believe that he is. I have to believe that he is. Chapter 3. He comes back to the house 3 weeks after he wakes up. This is not straightforward. There are people at the security company who think he should take a leave of absence and recover somewhere else, and there are doctors who have opinions about environment and continuity of care. And there is a general consensus among the people around me that having him back in the house is complicated for a variety of reasons. They are each too professional to say directly. I'm not interested in their opinions. I have thought about it carefully, and I believe that the environment is part of what might help. The house is 3 years of his life. The kitchen where he stood with his coffee in the mornings is 3 years of his life. The chair by the window in the sitting room where he read at night is 3 years of his life. I cannot give him the memories, but I can give him the place where the memories happened and let whatever is going to happen happen. He walks through the front door, and I watch his face. He is doing what he always does, reading the space, cataloging it. But there is something else underneath the professional habit, something I have to watch very carefully to see because he is also very good at not showing things, a quality of almost recognition, like standing in a room where you know a piece of music has been played but you cannot quite hear it. He does not say anything about it. I do not say anything about it. We have developed a careful unspoken agreement in the weeks at the hospital about what we address directly and what we allow to sit. He does not ask me about the things he has lost. I do not offer them unprompted. We navigate the gap between what he knows and what he does not by being very present in the things that are in front of us. The first morning he is home, I come downstairs and find him in the kitchen, standing at the counter, coffee in hand, not sitting. I stop in the kitchen doorway and I look at him, and I feel something happen in my chest that I have no name for. It is not quite hope. It is something more cautious than hope, something that says look at that and does not say what to make of it yet. He sees me in the doorway and he offers to make me coffee. I say yes. He makes it the way I take it, which is with milk and 1 sugar, which he knows because it is in the file the security company gave him. We stand in the kitchen and drink our coffee, him at the counter, me a few feet away, the morning light coming through the window above the sink. It is not the same as it was. Nothing is the same as it was, but it has the shape of something I recognize, and I hold onto that shape very carefully. The days develop a rhythm. A careful new one, different from the old one but containing some of the same elements. He is still here. He is still doing his work, in a modified form that does not require him to be in full operational capacity yet. He is still reading at night. I can see the light under his door when I pass. He is still the most still person in any room he occupies. What is different is the quality of the space between us. Before there was a specific kind of ease in it. The ease of 2 people who have spent enough time together that they do not need to manage each other anymore. Now there is management. We are both managing, both being careful, both navigating something that neither of us has a map for. I find it harder some days than others. The days when something happens that would have been ordinary before and is now a reminder of what is missing. The first time he does something that is completely himself, a gesture or a habit, and I react to it in the old way before I remember that he does not know about the old way. The first time I have to not finish a sentence because the end of it belongs to a version of us that he is not in. I hold all of this very carefully. I do not let it show. He is navigating his own version of something enormous, and I am not going to add to it. Chapter 4. I understand his side of it, as much as I can understand something I am not living, from watching him and from what he tells me in the evenings when we are both tired enough to be less careful. He tells me that the hardest part is not the missing 3 years themselves. It is the feeling that the missing years are not actually gone. He can feel the shape of them, not the content, not the memories, but something like the weight of them. The sense that there is a significant amount of time that happened and that he was present for, and that is not accessible to him. Like a room in a house where the door has been locked, and you can tell from the outside that the room is there, and that things are in it but you cannot get in. He tells me that some things feel almost familiar in a way he cannot explain or justify. The kitchen in the morning, the route he walks to check the perimeter of the house, the particular quality of late afternoon light in the sitting room. These things feel like they have been part of his life without his being able to say why, which is disorienting in a specific way because his brain is trying to attach significance to things and cannot explain where the significance comes from. He tells me this carefully and without self-pity, which is very him, and I listen to it and I think about all the things that feel familiar to him that have her in them that he cannot access yet. The kitchen in the morning because we stood in it every morning together. The route he walks because he always walked it with me beside him until I went inside. The sitting room light because we sat in it together in the evenings, more evenings than I can count. I do not tell him any of this. It is not the right time. He is building a new understanding of his present situation, and I am not going to complicate it with a past he cannot verify. But I notice what he says feels familiar, and I hold it. There is another thing he tells me that costs him more to say. He tells me that he is aware that something is missing in how he understands me, that the file and the briefing tell him the facts, and that the facts are clear, but that there is a texture to being around me that he cannot account for from the facts. That I feel known to him in a way that is not explained by 3 weeks of a professional relationship renegotiated from scratch, that he does not know what to do with this because it is not information he can use or verify. I am very still when he tells me this. I look at my hands for a moment. Then I tell him that this is not something he needs to do anything with right now, that whatever it is it will either clarify or it will not, and that either way he does not need to push it. I tell him this in the voice I use when I am being very careful, and he looks at me with those amber eyes and nods, and I understand that he heard the careful in my voice even if he does not know what it means yet. He is still reading me, even without the 3 years. He is still paying attention in the specific way that is his. I go to bed that night and I think about the room with the locked door, and I think about feelings without context, and I think about texture that cannot be explained by facts. I think that something is happening. I do not know yet what to do with it. Chapter 5. 6 weeks after he comes home, we have established a morning routine that is not the old one and is also not entirely different from it. He is always up first. This was true before and is true now and requires no memory to be true because it is simply what he is. By the time I come downstairs, the kitchen is already inhabited and the coffee is already made, and there is a quality to the morning that is different from the quality of a morning where you are the first person in a space. We talk in the mornings, not about anything significant usually, about the day ahead, about practical things, about whatever he has been reading because he reads things that are interesting and has opinions about them, and I have always found his opinions interesting even when I disagree with them, which I sometimes do and which he finds, I think, more useful than agreement. I notice things. I am always noticing things, but I am noticing specific things now with a specific attention. I notice that he brings me the thing I always want before I ask for it, not every time, not in a way that could be called a pattern from outside, but consistently enough that I register it. The window opened the exact amount I prefer before I have mentioned it being too warm. The book moved to where I can reach it when I settle into the sitting room even though it was on the other side of the room. Small things, things that could be observation rather than memory. I notice that he is more comfortable in my presence than he is with anyone else who comes to the house. Not dramatically, but there is a quality of ease that is not there with the security company people, or with my assistant, or with anyone else who is regularly in the building. With me, there is something that looks like ease. I notice that he has started sitting down to drink his coffee. This takes me a moment to process the first time I see it. He is at the kitchen table instead of at the counter, and he has his book and his coffee, and he is reading before the morning fully starts. I stand in the doorway looking at this, and I think about what he told me about things that feel familiar, and about the room with the locked door, and about feelings without context. I think about whether sitting down to drink his coffee is him or whether it is him, plus 3 years of me being someone he sat down with in the mornings. I think about whether that distinction matters. I decide it does not matter. I go and sit across from him at the table and I get out my own book and we read, side by side in the morning kitchen, the way we used to. Neither of us says anything about it. The next morning he is at the table again when I come down, and the morning after that. I think about accumulation, about mornings where one thing feels more like an idea than another until it is simply what happens. I think that something is changing and I try not to push it and I go and sit across from him and get out my book. Chapter 6. It is a Tuesday evening in January, 2 months after he came home, and we are in the sitting room, and it is the specific quality of late afternoon light that he mentioned feeling familiar, the golden low winter light that comes through the west window at this hour. He is at his usual chair, I am at mine. We have books but neither of us is reading. We have been talking, the comfortable kind of talking that does not require much management, and then the conversation has found one of its natural resting places, and we are both just in the room with the light. He is looking at the window. I am looking at him looking at the window. Then he says something very quietly. He says that he has been trying to understand what this room feels like, and that the closest he can get is that it feels like something he has been in many times in a state of being content, and that he knows that is not possible to know from 2 months, and that he does not know what to do with knowing something that is not possible. I am very still. I think about all the evenings in this room, 2.5 years of evenings, reading and talking, and the comfortable silences of people who do not need to fill all the space, the specific quality of this room at this hour with both of us in it. I think about what to say. This is the moment I have been careful around for 2 months, the moment where he is close enough to something that I could help him get there, or I could step back and let it come on its own, or I could say nothing. I decide on something in between. I tell him that this is where we spent most of our evenings, that after whatever the day had been this was where we ended up. I tell him that we read and talked, and that it was one of the things about our arrangement that worked well and that I valued. I tell him this carefully and without elaborating into territory that might be too much. He is quiet for a long time after I say it, looking at the window. Then he looks at me, and his amber eyes are doing something I cannot entirely read, something that is processing and also something more than processing. He says that makes sense. He says it in the way of someone for whom something has clicked into place, not dramatically, just settled. We go back to our books. The room is the same room. The light is the same light. But something has shifted. I can feel that something has shifted without being able to say what it is or what it means yet. I read 3 pages before I realize I have not absorbed any of them. Chapter 7. The doctors said it might happen gradually. They said that in cases like his, where the amnesia is specific rather than global, there was often some recovery over time. Not always, not guaranteed, but that the brain sometimes found ways around the damage, that the memories might come back fragmentarily, out of order, more as impressions than as clear events. I did not let myself hope for this too much. Hope is expensive when you are trying to maintain a sustainable version of a situation that is already very difficult, and hoping for something specific makes the current reality harder to be in. But in the 3rd month, things start to happen. He comes to find me one morning with the specific expression of someone who has something to say that they are not sure how to say. He tells me that he has been having what he thinks are fragments, not full memories, just moments, like photographs from something rather than a sequence of events. He tells me he is not sure they are real because they do not feel like memories feel when he accesses them from before the gap. They feel more like the memories are arriving from the outside rather than being retrieved from the inside. I ask him what kinds of things. He tells me carefully, a specific quality of light in a car at night, which I know is the ambulance because the light in the back of an ambulance at night has a particular quality, a sense of someone's hand holding his, a voice saying something he cannot quite hear. These come at night mostly, he says, between sleeping and waking, and they are gone by the time he is fully awake, but they leave something behind, a feeling, not the content but the feeling that the content carried. I listen to all of this, and I am very careful with my face. I know what the light in the car is. I know whose hand it was. I know what the voice was saying because I was the voice, and I know exactly what I said. I said his name, and I told him not to go, and I told him things I had been holding for a year and a half, and I do not know how much he could hear. I tell him that I think the fragments are real. I tell him that what he is describing sounds consistent with what the doctors said might happen. I tell him this carefully and without telling him what I know the fragments are. He nods, he looks at his hands for a moment. Then he looks at me and he says that the feeling the fragments leave behind is not a frightening one, that it is something else, something that feels like it belongs to him in a way the gap does not. I tell him to be patient with it. I tell him these things take time. I go to my room and I sit on the edge of my bed and I press my hands flat on my knees and I breathe. He is coming back, not all at once, not clearly, but he is coming back. I have been waiting for this, and now that it is happening, I find that I do not know how to be in it. I find that waiting was something I understood how to do, and this is something different, and I am going to have to figure out how to do it. Chapter 8. He asks me in March, 3.5 months after he came home, 4 months after he woke up not knowing me. We are in the kitchen in the morning, and we have been talking about something ordinary, and then there is one of the pauses that happens in our mornings, and then he asks me something that is not ordinary at all. He asks me what we were to each other. Not professionally. He says this clearly and immediately. He says he knows the professional answer, and the professional answer does not account for the way I have been here every day since he woke up. It does not account for the specific quality of the mornings and the evenings in the sitting room, and the way he feels in this house, which he has come to understand, is not simply familiarity with a place. He says he has been trying to find the professional explanation for what this feels like, and he cannot find it, and he would like me to tell him what he is missing. I look at my coffee for a moment. I think about what I said in the ambulance. I think about 1.5 years of not saying things and 3.5 months of still not saying them because the timing was not right, and he needed to find his way back to himself before I handed him something else to carry. I think about whether this is the moment. I look at him, pale skin and dark hair and amber eyes that are doing the thing they do when he is being completely direct, looking at me with the full quality of his attention and not moving. I tell him the truth. I tell him that I do not know exactly what we were because we never named it. I tell him that we were together every day for 3 years and that somewhere in the second year, something shifted between us and that neither of us said anything about it because the professional structure made saying something complicated. I tell him that I was aware of it for 1.5 years and that I managed it and did not say anything, and that the night he was shot, I said things in the ambulance that I had not said before because I thought he might not survive, and I could not let him not survive without him having heard them. I tell him that I do not know if he heard any of it. He is very still, the specific stillness that is his, the one I have known for 3 years and recognized in him when he came home without the 3 years. Then he asks me what I said. I tell him the same words, in the morning kitchen instead of the back of an ambulance, looking at him instead of at his closed eyes. I tell him his name and I tell him not to go and I tell him that I love him and that I have loved him for 1.5 years and that I am sorry it took a bullet for me to say it. The kitchen is very quiet. He looks at me for a long time. The amber eyes are doing something I have not seen before on his face in this version of our life, something that is recognition, not the almost recognition of the room that feels familiar, full recognition, the kind that comes from the inside. He says my name, not as a question this time, as itself. The way he said my name before all of this. Chapter 9. The doctors call it a breakthrough when he describes it to them at the next appointment. They say it is not uncommon, in cases like his, for an emotional event to trigger a more significant recovery than had been occurring gradually. They say the brain finds pathways around damage when the reason to find them is strong enough. I find this very clinical as a description of what actually happened, and I do not say so to the doctors. What actually happens is this. After I tell him what I said in the ambulance, he is very still for a long time, and then he reaches across the kitchen table and puts his hand over mine and holds it the way you hold something that you have been afraid you were not going to find. And then something happens that I do not fully understand medically, but that I understand completely in every other way. The locked door opens. Not everything at once, but the lock comes off and the door opens. He tells me later what it was like. He says it was not like suddenly remembering. It was more like suddenly understanding something that had been accumulating, all the things that felt familiar without explanation, all the feelings that arrived without context, the morning kitchen and the sitting room and the quality of being in a room with me. All of it clicked into the shape it had always been, and the shape was 3 years and it was ours. He cries. He's not someone who cries easily or often, and when it happens it is quiet and private, and I sit across from him at the kitchen table, and I hold his hand, and I wait for it to pass. He is processing 3 years arriving all at once in their proper context after 4 months of feeling them arrive without being able to place them. I do not cry. I have been very disciplined about not crying for 4 months because there was always something more important to be doing than crying. I cry later, alone in my room that night, and it is for a long time, and it is everything I have been holding very carefully for 4 months finally let down. In the days after the breakthrough, we are careful with each other in a new way, a gentler way. He is absorbing 4 months of the gap filling in and what that means, and I am absorbing the return of the person I have been missing and what that means. We have the conversations we could not have before because before he did not have the context for them. He tells me things about the 3 years from his side, things I did not know he noticed or felt because neither of us was saying things. He tells me when he understood that whatever he felt about me was more than professional. He tells me about the year and a half of also not saying things and why. He tells me what it was like to wake up in the hospital with a gap where 3 years had been and look at the woman sitting beside his bed and feel something that the file did not explain. I tell him things from my side too, the year and a half of managing it, what I said in the ambulance and why, the 4 months of sitting with him in the hospital and at home while he did not know me the way I knew him and choosing every morning to be there anyway. He listens to all of this with the full quality of his attention, and then he says something that is very him. He says that 4 months of not knowing me and still finding me the most present person in any room he was in tells him something he thinks he already knew from the inside, but wanted to have confirmed from the outside. I look at him. He says that whatever this is, it was always going to be this. The bullet did not change it. The 4 months did not change it. The gap did not change it. It was going to be this. I reach across and I take his hand. He holds it. He has always held it like it matters. Chapter 10. Spring comes and the house is the same house and different in all the ways that things are different when something has resolved. He is here. He is the person I know and who knows me. The 3 years are back, not perfectly, not every detail, but enough. The important things, the mornings and the evenings and the 3 years of being together every day and what grew in the space of that. We are different with each other now, not dramatically. The professional structure has been renegotiated in the way that things get renegotiated when the nature of a relationship changes. He is still here every day. The work is still real. The care he takes about the safety of this house and of me has not changed because that is who he is, and it does not stop being who he is because we are also something else now. What is different is the not saying things is over. We say things now, not everything all at once, not in a way that is more than what the moment calls for, but we say things when things need to be said, and we do not manage the space between us with the careful discipline of two people who have decided not to cross a line. The line is gone. We crossed it in a kitchen in March, and neither of us is going back to the other side of it. The mornings are the best part. He's still always up first, and the coffee is still made by the time I come down, and he is at the table now, always at the table, with his book. I come down and I sit across from him, and the morning does whatever the morning does, and we are in it together in the way that we are in everything together now. One morning in April I come down and he is not reading. He is looking at the window the way he sometimes looks at it when he is thinking about something. I sit across from him, and I look at the window too, and I wait, and after a moment he tells me what he is thinking about. He is thinking about the 4 months, not with the grief that it had when we were in the middle of it, with something more like the way you think about something difficult that you have come through, and that has changed you in ways you are still understanding. He says he has been thinking about what it means to feel something without knowing why, to know someone without knowing that you know them, to have 3 years of being present with a person show up as familiarity and ease, and the sense that a room is right when they are in it, before the memories came back to explain any of it. He says he thinks it means that whatever we are to each other is not primarily located in the memories, that the memories are the record of it, but the thing itself is somewhere else, in the body or in something he does not have a word for, something that 4 months of a locked door and a significant head injury could not touch. I look at him across the table in the morning kitchen. I think about a year and a half of not saying things and 4 months of sitting beside someone who did not know me and saying nothing and choosing every morning to be there anyway. I think about the hand over mine in the kitchen when the door finally opened. I think about him saying my name as itself instead of as a question. I tell him that I think he is right. He looks at me with those amber eyes, the full version, the version that knows me and that I know, and that has always been looking at me this way, even when we were both pretending it was something else. I reach across the table. He takes my hand before I finish reaching. The morning light is coming through the kitchen window. The coffee is getting cold. We have a whole day ahead of us and many mornings after this one. I am not in a hurry. Neither is he. Epilogue. 1 year after the bullet, on a Tuesday evening in November, we are in the sitting room. The light is the specific quality of light that he told me felt familiar when he did not know why. The golden low winter light through the west window, the light that now has its explanation and is still the same light. He is in his chair, I am in mine. We have books. Mine is open, his is closed. He has been looking at the window for a while, and I have been watching him look at the window because I have always watched him, and it has never stopped being something I do. He turns and sees me watching him. This used to happen in the version of us that was not saying things, and it would pass with a quality of shared awareness. Now it happens, and he just looks back at me without managing what his face is doing, and what his face is doing is the specific thing it does when he looks at me that I spent a year and a half pretending not to see. I do not pretend not to see it anymore. He asks me what I am thinking about. I tell him honestly, which is what I do now. I tell him I am thinking about last year, about this room in this light, and sitting in it while he was sitting across from me not knowing why it felt familiar. He nods. He thinks about this sometimes too. We both do. It is part of what we are now, the before and the during and the after all being present together, the whole shape of it. He says something. He says that of all the things that came back, the 4 months came back differently from the 3 years. He says the 3 years came back as memories, as things that happened that he can now access. The 4 months came back as something else, as the experience of knowing something that he could not explain and living in that not explaining for 4 months without being able to make it make sense. He says he thinks the 4 months are actually the most important part. I ask him why. He says because the 4 months prove that whatever this is does not require the memories to exist, that it exists in something more fundamental than that it was there before he knew it was there, and it was there when he could not access the reasons for it, and it is going to be there in whatever comes after this. I look at him across the sitting room in the November light. I think about a year and a half of not saying things, about 4 months of being with someone who did not know me and choosing to be there every morning, about the hand over mine in the kitchen when the door opened, about mornings at the table and evenings in this room, and all the ordinary days that have accumulated in the year since. I think that he is right, that whatever this is does not live in the memories are the record, the thing itself is something else. I close my book, I get up from my chair and I go and sit in his chair beside him, which is something I did not do before the bullet and do now, and I lean into him and he puts his arm around me and we look at the window together. The light is very good. The room is the right size. I am not in a hurry for anything. This is what I keep, all of it, the before and the during and the after and this evening and all the evenings that are coming, the whole shape of it. It is more than enough. It is everything.